Welcome to episode 8 of the Princeton Podcast with Mayor Mark Freda. In this episode, Mark invited Lance Liverman, a lifelong Princeton resident who has served on many of Princeton's boards and committees for the past 25 years. Mark and Lance focused much of their conversation on the evolution of Princeton real estate, including our efforts to provide for affordable housing, as well as the potential community impact, both good and bad, of accessory dwelling units, often called ADUs, now beginning to appear here in Princeton. So without any further introduction, let's join our host, Mark Freda, and his guest, Lance Liverman, for episode 8 of the Princeton Podcast.
Lance, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let me just ask you a few questions. I think, Lance, most people know you from your time on Township Committee and then the Princeton Council once the two towns combined. But you were there a long time between those two governing bodies.
Yeah, I was there for a total of 15 years as an elected official and 10 years prior on boards and commissions. So 25 years of serving the beautiful town of Princeton, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment. I mean, that's a very long time. A lot of people come and go in one or two terms, and that's it.
Yeah, that's a very long time. It didn't seem like it was long, maybe within 20 years, and then the last 5, it kind of like stretched out to be 50. So I said, I'll vacate the seat and let someone else serve.
Yeah. So, I know as a council member, the council people are liaisons to any number of boards, committees, commissions. There's council committees. Are there some of those that you can just kind of highlight and say, hey, here's some of the different things I did over all those years?
Oh, my God. And all that time, I served on so many. So I served liaison to the Princeton Recreation Department, Civil Rights, Human Services, on and on. I probably touched quite a few. The housing, the Housing Authority of Princeton. So I really enjoyed it. Being a liaison really connects you to the people.
Yeah.
It connects you to the town. And the town wouldn't be anywhere if we didn't have the volunteers that we have. So it was great for me to serve as a liaison to so many boards.
Yeah. And you're still, actually, even though you just said, hey, 25 years, and I finally said I'm going to stop, you never really stop because you're still on the Affordable Housing Board, aren't you?
I am. I'm a member of the Affordable Housing Board. Affordable housing has been near and dear to me my entire life. And I love trying to find people decent housing in a town like Princeton, where it's a benefit to live here. So affordable housing is something that I take near and dear. So I love serving. I don't know. I'm assuming I'll serve next year, but if not, I'll still find something to do.
Rumor has it you're a lock to stay on that board, okay. But anyway. So, one thing interesting with the Affordable Housing Board is I think, recently the board made some suggestions to the council about ways to make the application process, at least the initial application to get on the list, easier by removing some of the requirements that aren't needed in the early stages.
Yes, we found out that some people that apply for affordable housing, especially when it comes to credit, they run into difficulty. Some locations or places will ask that you have a 650 credit rating, and that's all they're looking at is the number, but they're not looking at the definition and why it's under 650. For instance, sometimes we get in trouble with medical problems, and that pulls you down. If you have a $15,000 medical bill that you haven't paid, but yet you paid all your other bills. So we've asked, and what we would like is to let the person or family fill the application, start the application process without looking at the credit at that point. And then at the end of the application process, if everything is lockstep and in perfect order, then we can pull a credit report. And that would not discourage them from applying or discourage them from not obtaining a unit.
Right, which is a great idea. And I mean, reality is reality, and you need to see not just what the number is, but why. And
yes.
And then I think also, right, the board recommended that we not require a Social Security number on the initial application.
Yes, the Social Security number was also something that we felt that we not have on the initial application. for sometimes I think the Social Security number kind of scares folks, and I think that goes along with the credit and other items that they were kind of, I guess I would say, frightened, or maybe I should say they may have been frightened, but they may have been frightened for the wrong reason. So we're just trying to move any barrier that will not let someone apply.
Right. And realistically, with COVID and everything, getting a Social Security number doesn't happen as quick as it used to.
That's right.
And an immigrant into the country may not yet have a Social Security number, but they may have children that were born here. They can get a Social Security number quicker than they can. So that would also lock that person from being able to get housing for a legitimate family that should have housing.
That's exactly right. I mean, I can't share with you how difficult during COVID it's been for many things. And housing is just one of the areas that it's been very, very difficult. And also in a lot of our affordable housing units, well, some, not all, they were also having problems because some folks weren't working. So when you're not working, that it's kind of difficult to come up with the rent money at the end of the month. So we were thankful for the government releasing funds, COVID release monies that helped. But it was just a tough time.
Yeah. Very hard time. Let's shift gears somewhat. Were you born in Princeton?
Yes, 1962 at Princeton Hospital.
Wow.
At that time, I was living on, I believe it was called Hartley Avenue. It was part of the University Barracks on Harrison.
Butler Track.
Butler Track,
sure.
And my father was the first, from what I've told, African-American lighting engineer at McCarter Theater in 1957, 58. And at that time, they were housing the employees, university was, and that's why we were living there. So in 1962, I was born. I was born there. So I've been here. I went through the school system, elementary school, because we had moved over on Witherspoon Street. I was part of the busing project, and I was bused to Little Brook School. And from Little Brook School, I went to John Witherspoon to Princeton High School. I left Princeton High School and attended my first 3 years at Fairleigh Dickinson University in Teaneck, New Jersey. And then I completed my last year at College of New Jersey, which was Trenton State.
Yeah, I know it as Trenton State College also, because when I was there, it was Trenton State College.
Trenton State. So I've been around for a while.
Yeah, that's great. So, all right, you finished college at Trenton State College.
Yes.
Did you work locally, or were you out of the area? Or
I did. So my family owned, at that time, they owned a, like what we would call it like a trash company, or where you pick up trash and take it to the dump and so forth. So because of that, we met a lot of important folks in town. So there was a man by the name of Richard Dillsworth. I lived at 141 Hodge Road. He was also on the board of directors of Macy's. When I graduated, he sent me a nice letter saying, would you consider working for Macy's? So that time I went into New York, Herald Square, and applied for a job at Macy's. And I started working for Macy's. And then I moved here at Quakerbridge Mall. I was in the assistant buyer program. I left Macy's, which I loved it. And I went on to work for Clancy Paul Computers. I worked for Glenn Paul and Mr. Clancy. And I enjoyed that. I worked over in Cranberry at their headquarters. I did some inventory work there. I then left there and went to a company called North American Phillips Lighting Corporation. And I was an account executive there. And I stayed there until August of 88. And I decided that I'm going to work for myself. And in August of 88, I started something called the Special Courier, which was a delivery service. We delivered same-day packages from Boston to Washington, D.C.
Well, you were ahead of your time.
I had 3 vans and 3 employees, and we were doing well until something called 9/11. When 9/11 came, all my large accounts, Reuters, Thomas, American Express, Merrill Lynch, were in the financial district. And when that occurred, the business that I was doing for them went south. Fortunate for me, during those years of running the Special Courier, I knew I needed a retirement program. So I started purchasing real estate instead of having a 401k. And I was able to buy quite a few pieces of real estate around Princeton, Lawrenceville, and East Windsor. And I had companies manage my real estate while I was doing the special courier work. But after 9/11, I decided to take all my real estate and manage it myself. And it was the best thing I've ever done in my life. So that's what I do now.
That's amazing that, you had such the foresight to think about that. But, just think if not for 9/11, you might have been the new FedEx. I mean,
there you go.
I'm sure you were getting ready to buy an airplane or two, but
yeah, maybe 3 or 4 jets, and we'll leave out of Teterboro. But no, it was a very good business. I not to digress, but I used to deliver all kinds of things. And just to tell you some items that we delivered blood for the Florum Blood Bank. Huh. So when people need a blood, they will call my service, we run blood. We also were certified that we could be witnesses in regard to corporate signings. So when one corporation would buy another one, my drivers would be the witness for those transactions. I mean, we did a myriad of things. It was a great business. Yeah. I mean, I delivered tile to some of the richest people in the world, imported tile that would come from the docks of New York. And so it was a great business. Great business.
Yeah. It's amazing, right? Because you think of, okay, here's this guy that was on town council, but then you're like, all of a sudden, this guy had this business. And, I also, when you mentioned Clancy Paul, right? The computer company. Yeah. When you think back to that, they were very early on with computers. And, they were a big deal here in town.
They were a big deal. They were, Glenn Paul was just an incredible, gifted young guy, and Mr. Clancy was before his time. Yeah. And they really put together a solid company. It was great. We were able to furnish a lot of schools with computers and teach folks, and it was a very good business.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting that you branched out into real estate again. Yeah. In the time you were buying real estate compared to values in the area today. That's
oh my Lord,
quite a difference, right?
I will tell you, in the early 90s, I bought a duplex in Princeton for about $140,000. That same duplex will sell today for about $720,000.
Yeah,
$850 easy. It's incredible, and that's why it's so important for the folks that live in Princeton to try to stay in Princeton. I'm a big proponent of aging in place if possible, and I think that's where taxes and things of that sort have to be reasonable, so that people can stay here.
Yeah.
But the real estate values, it's really one of the gifts that we've have living in Princeton is owning our homes.
Right. So if you were able to buy long enough ago, the threshold to buy a property was quote unquote reasonable.
Reasonable.
Where we see today, I think one of the biggest, some of the biggest problems facing our people in town, people that grow up. So you grow up here, you go to high school, you finish college, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, how do I buy a home here now?
That's right.
Because it's so costly. And there's people that are forced out of town, literally every week because of taxes or property values.
That's exactly right. And I think they were saying that the medium house is like 800,000 or
it's like 840 or something like that.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And also, a lot of the professional folks that are coming out of college are coming out with large debts. Their debts are incredible, which makes it kind of difficult.
Right. So looking at the whole real estate thing, average cost of homes or whatever, and I know the town not so long ago passed an ordinance allowing the accessory dwelling units, the ADUs. And, I think the intent of that was to help people stay in town in that, okay, I own a house. I could build an ADU and either move into it and rent out my house, or I could rent out the ADU so I can afford to stay in my house.
Yep.
So I think it'll be interesting over time to see how that works out, because it sounds to me like, even the Affordable Housing Board probably would say, oh, well, the concept is a good concept.
Yes. I do. I think that the concept of ADUs I think is a great concept. And that's, like you mentioned, if you have a house, you can add on to the home as long as it's connecting. Or you can convert part of your home that you have into a separate dwelling place. And I think what it does, the first positive part of this, it increases the housing market. It increases how many homes that we have here in Princeton without actually, most times, expanding the footprint was so large, which I think is great. I think that there are some more curtailing or fine tuning of the ADUs that I think council and you, Mark, being the mayor, should probably look at.
Yeah.
I know recently there's been a discussion in town, and I know the New York Times have printed a very nice story in regard to ADUs that are selling for $800,000.
Yeah.
Now, there was nothing illegal about that, but that's not, I think, was the intent behind having an ADU. The intent was to have it so it's affordable. I would say. So I just think that some, curtailing, maybe in regard to size or something that will have it so that we can have ADUs do what they should, that we think that they should be doing.
Yeah, I think part of the problem there, not that I was involved, I wasn't an elected official at the time, but I think part of the problem is, the town was threatened with a lawsuit, and it ended up that you're able to sell both units, so you didn't have to maintain ownership.
Yes.
And so it kind of does. It's very different now because you've kind of said to developers, come in.
That's exactly right.
Find properties, and you developer do this. The developer's motivation is money. The developer's motivation is not, well, let me see, Mark's getting kind of old, and he could use an ADU so he could stay in town. Yeah. So the intent's very. So
you're absolutely right. I think that when this was discussed, and I think I was on council then, but when this was discussed, we thought that it was going to be for someone that actually lived in the dwelling, and then they would still live there and extend the olive branch to someone else to live there, via parent or someone else. The concept was never a developer would buy a place and then have two houses and sell both homes. Yeah. That wasn't what we thought was going to take place, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, there's what we think we're going to do, and there's what ends up happening. But luckily, you see what happens over time, and you try to figure out how to make it better.
You're right.
All right. So let's again. Okay. So you have a family, right? You have a wife, children.
I do. I have a gorgeous wife that you see us walking around town. we walk. We received Christmas cards this year, and they're funny because on the Christmas cards, some have noted, hope to see you walking around town, because my wife and I, we walk 5.4 miles Monday through Friday, and we walk 6.5 miles Saturdays and Sundays, which seems incredible, but we do it and we love it. But what we've noticed is we're something of celebrities because everyone blows their horn or waves, keep it up.
Gosh, I know all the times I waved and you yelling, I see you guys everywhere.
Everyone says that. So, we were at the battlefield last Sunday walking, and we cut through the Institute, and we ended up at the shopping center. And one guy came by and said, "Didn't I see you on Mercer Street a while ago?" I said, "Yeah, you did. So, we definitely enjoy it. So my wife is LaTanya Kilpatrick Liverman. I met her when she was getting her PhD degree at Princeton University. She's a director of early research for Colgate-Palmolive. My oldest child is Kelsey Liverman. She's a second-year medical student at Temple Medical School. My middle child is Ashlyn Liverman, and she's a senior, University of Maryland, College Park. And my baby is Savannah Liverman, and she's a junior at Princeton High School. So we are all proud of our kids. We think that they've done well and they're doing well.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's right. Family's very important.
Thank you. Very important.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other place I see you a lot, aside from walking, is that the First Baptist Church there at the corner of Paul Robeson and John Street. So you're very involved in your church.
I'm chairman of the trustee board at First Baptist Church of Princeton. I've been a member, and this is hard to believe, I've been a member of First Baptist Church for 53 years.
Oh, my.
It's almost incredible. So I am. I'm involved with the church, trying to keep the church on the corner. I call it keeping the little light on the corner. We try to do as many things as we can at the church. We've recently had a clothes drive and trying to give clothes to anyone that needs them. We still have a lot of clothes left. We've adopted a community in Malawi, Africa, and we've been supporting them for probably the last, I'll say maybe 14, 15 years. We have about 800 orphans that we make sure that they eat and have water, proper water, and schooling, education. So we've been helping with that also, which we're very, very proud of. And we do a lot of things around the community. During Christmas times, we give out food cards like other folks, and we try to help people out. So I love First Baptist. It's been here about 140 years or so, and we're trying to have it go on for another 140 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, are their services open again? Or?
Our services are open, 10:30 every Sunday morning. We're also on Facebook, as you know,
yeah.
but our services are open. We haven't started back Sunday school and some other things, but we're hopefully, we'll see which way that this COVID goes, but hopefully we'll be fully open next year. I'm hoping.
Music is also a big part of the services, right? I mean, you have some local people.
We love music,
right?
We love music. One thing about a Baptist church is you're not going to go to a Baptist church and not find good music. That's something that we invest in. We love the music. We have folks from the community that sing in the choir, and we do music things. We used to do music things before the COVID. At least once a year, have different churches come in and sing with us and so forth. So music is extremely important. We love it.
Yeah. No, it's a pretty. I've been to service there a few times, and it's a great church.
Thank you.
People. Yeah.
Well, when you come, you're more than welcome. I mean, anyone that wants to come to church, like I said, 10:30. We're at 119 John Street. right on the corner of Paul Robeson, right across from the beautiful Dorothea House, and we'll love to have you.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, and people listening should feel free. There's a number of churches in the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood that are all very welcoming. It's like, doesn't matter whether you come here every week or not, but if you want to come in, join a service. And
we have people stop in. We also do, and it's something that we've done. We do. And it's going to sound kind of crazy, but we do great funerals. I know it does sound kind of nuts, but we've had people from everywhere, from people from St. Paul's, people from the Jewish Center, Christian Science, various people, and they've all come and said that they've just been amazed at how well that we do what we call homegoing service, because we try to do it in a way that it's beneficial for the folks that are there, and uplifting. Yeah. Even though the person's gone, we feel that they've left something for us to be excited about. So we do a great job with that.
You do. I will say I've been to a number of funerals there.
Thank you.
They have been well done.
Thank you.
So, looking at all your time in the community, whether it's with the church, the township committee, the town council, all the boards, committees, commissions, the various ones you were on. I mean, this common theme of community service, just, what's driving you in that direction? Were you really bad as a child, or what happened
here? My mother was a big community advocate, and she felt that we were what we would call blessed to be able to give back. So as a young child, from being in the Boy Scouts to, Cub Scouts to, the Ranger camp at the YMCA and so forth, it was always a sense of giving back. And that's just how I was raised. I'm hoping that many other people will understand that this is, some people have labeled this as civic duty, but I labeled it as being blessed that you can give back. And I find it extremely important. And I've tried to instill that in my kids, believe it or not, that, there's a lot of folks that are less fortunate than we are. And if we can serve somehow to make the town better, then we should. So it started as a child. This is all I know. I mean, my makeup, my DNA is that I just can't see myself not giving back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've done a lot, and you continue to do a lot. So thank you on behalf of a lot of people. So let me ask you this question. Have you ever thought about running for political office again, whether it's council, county, state, whatever?
You know, I'm glad that you asked me that question. That question comes up quite often. Am I going to run for a political office? Am I considering running for a political office? And at this point of time, I can tell you no. I've shared, enough of my sweat and tears in political office. But you never know what the future holds.
Right.
You say no now, and then 4 years down the road, something comes up. But for now, I find myself I'm more content. Yeah, I'm more content. I serve on the Princeton Senior Resource Center board. I serve on Mercer Council Alcohol and Drug Board. I'm their treasurer. I mean, you mentioned Affordable Housing Board, chairman of the First Baptist Church, president and CEO of Liverman Associates, taking care of real estate. I don't really see myself doing too much more at this point. I really don't.
All right, we'll put that down as a definite maybe.
Maybe. It's a definite maybe.
So the Lance Liverman Political Committee, go ahead and get yourself formed. You never know. So, Lance, you had a very good seat at seeing the two towns prior to consolidation and then being on the elected body right after consolidation. Mm-hmm. So just, what are your general thoughts on how that whole thing worked out?
The principle of consolidating, I think, was extremely important. I voted for consolidation. I thought that we should consolidate. We had too many duplicates. We were duplicating and duplicating. If I had an engineer, the township, the borough had an engineer at the borough. And it was just duplicating, and we didn't have to do that. So I think that the overall scheme of consolidation actually worked for us. It was rough. The only different I think I would have done is, looking hindsight, is I would have given us a little more time to blend and mesh things together. Right. So instead of 1 or 3 years, I would have given 5 or 10. It's a lot of stuff. Yeah. And I don't think we knew going into this, it was this much. But as far as the police departments, as far as public works, as far as, all those, I think that it worked out very, very well.
Yeah, I would imagine, especially for the police, because you had two small departments.
Yep.
And now you have one mid-sized department, I guess you could describe it as. So it's got to be a lot easier for the police to do everything they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And not be so constrained with having so few people in each of the prior two departments.
I agree. I've always been I call it a cheerleader for the police. Yeah. I think that they do a fine job. And I think that by having the consolidation, it opens up avenues that they didn't have before. Community policing, just a whole bunch of avenues that they didn't have the resources before. But now that you have a larger department with more people, you can do more outward things.
Yeah.
So I believe in the police being proactive instead of reactive.
Right.
And I'm hoping that with the consolidation and with the way that we're going, that we continue to do that.
Yeah. And I think the police have definitely achieved that goal, and consolidation was a definite bonus. And like you mentioned, public works also, it's got to be just so much easier for public works. Again, talk about having so much duplication of equipment and positions. I know. We're only 18 square miles. I mean, my gosh.
No, it got to the point where we're like, well, and people didn't even know where to go. When you said Princeton, and you want to go to the clerk's office, do I go to Princeton clerk's office at the borough, or do I go to Princeton clerk's office at the township? So they would come to the township, looking for the clerk with all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, after a while, like, oh, you're in the wrong place. They're like, you're kidding me. And they have to run back up to the borough. Yeah. It was like, this makes no sense. So we finally realized that we're really one town. The schools were already, consolidated. Other things were really consolidated. It wasn't need for the municipality to be different. We shouldn't be separate.
Right.
And I mean, I knew people were knocking and screaming, and they were saying, "Oh, the town's going to close, and we're going to be up the creek without a paddle, and all this other stuff." But I think looking years down the road, I think that we're doing okay.
Yeah, I think it's made a big difference. It just makes governing and managing the town so much easier.
A lot easier.
Yeah. So I think I've pretty much exhausted my list of questions here, Lance. So I want to. I don't know if there's any great tidbit about your life that you want to throw in, like the shoe boxes buried in the backyard or where they are or anything like that. But
no, I can't think of anything anything else probably that I haven't told you already. I will say, looking back on the ADUs, that I think that there's going to be discussions surrounding accessory dwelling units in the near future, and maybe some folks that are listening may have some ideas how we could probably curtail the ordinance as it is today, so that we can have it do what we thought we were going to originally have them do. But that's about the only thing.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Yeah.
So, Lance, thank you very much for having joined us today. We really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. Anytime. Anytime you need me, just call me.
Yeah, I think everybody in the town knows that. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the 8th episode of the Princeton Podcast, produced as a community service by HG Media, providing audio, video, and website design services here in Princeton since 1999. If you enjoyed this episode of the Princeton Podcast, please share it with your friends, and be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts.